Welcome to What's Up Pasadena. From masks to mausoleums, magic to the metaphysical, we're brewing up a charming concoction for this Halloween episode. On this episode, we search for the perfect Halloween costume, are mesmerized by the Egyptian Hall Museum, visit some celebrities at Mountain View Cemetery, and find the mind, body, and spirit connection at the Indigo Alliance.
StarMakers is this wonderful gem in Pasadena. It's been around over 20 years. It was started by Miss Beverly Bishop. She taught children's theater and then from there made the children's theater costumes for her actors and actresses. And she also had a theater in the 70s called Gestures. It was born out of there, out of her house, and then a small theater company. We costume a lot of schools in the area for their different plays or Colonial Day or parties, birthday parties, and of course Halloween. StarMakers is more than a costume shop because one, of course, the history, but two, just the love that we put into each costume, that the costume on its own is a character. And then when you get, your clients dressed, they become that person. It's not just, oh, I can buy this off the rack. We fit the costume to you, so it's almost like it's made for you personally. And that's a lot to do when you have over, thousands of costumes plus. It's more of a family business and people love the history and the legacy of it. It's been really an awesome experience owning a shop for the last decade.
My wife and I were in the entertainment industry for many years. I was a singer and an actor, and she was a dancer. We did a lot of shows together. We performed on cruise ships for many years. We've been doing that for about 11 years together, and came across this shop and thought, why not make this part of one of our many adventures that we've had together for so long. The biggest part of our goal for this shop is to continue to expand the space. There's so much inventory. The inventory is unparalleled to any other costume shop I've ever come across in Southern California. So we're really excited. And the best part about this shop is its legacy and how much love and care was put into each of the costumes. That's right, here at StarMakers, we do not mess around. Creature suit quality costumes. In fact, we have 2 of these Chewbacca costumes in stock. We also have costumes from a wide variety of different eras, pretty much any era you can think of. This one, for example, 1920s, flapper dress. Look at all that nice beadwork. This is also a plus-sized, full-figured costume as well. We have most of the costumes in the shop have a full-figure variety as well. And as you can see, winter has come indeed. Well, if you're looking for Game of Thrones style costumes, we also have a wide variety of medieval costumes, nice heavy material so that it actually feels really good, moves very naturally. Well, howdy. We also have Western style costumes, period authentic costumes. You can see the high quality material on it as well. Again, all custom made. Well, it's been a blockbuster year for movies. I would say very likely Wonder Woman has got to be #1 costume rental for this season. I would also think very highly that Star Wars will do very well this year as well. And it seems to be the season of the clown, so I believe it and any sort of clown style costume, Pennywise style costumes will probably do very well this season. We want to expand our online presence as well, taking everything into the future, and hopefully have more online ability to check out the costumes and rent directly online.
It has been an honor and a privilege to continue Miss Beverly's legacy for the last 10 years, and now it's going to just even continue to grow and expand even more with the Myers. They have awesome vision. It'll still be here and service the community and just continue to be this place of love. These custom costumes were totally designed and loved, and to think that they're still here because of the quality, how they've been made, how they've been upkeeped and taken care of, and more generations will get to continue to experience StarMakers costumes and parties. So I am so grateful that the Myers are continuing the legacy and it gets to keep on living on even further.
costumes and masks originated from the ancient Celts, who wanted to avoid being recognized as humans by the spirits and ghosts that roamed the countryside on Halloween night.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Do you believe in magic? I, for one, am a huge believer, so I can't wait to take you on a tour of the Egyptian Hall Museum, the oldest private magic museum in America, and it's right here in Pasadena.
It was started in 1895 by a gentleman named W.W. Durbin. He lived in Kenton, Ohio, and he built a theater in his backyard. And at the time, there was a very famous theater in London called Egyptian Hall, and it was a magic theater. And he thought, well, America should have its own Egyptian Hall, and so he named his little theater America's Egyptian Hall. And all the magicians came to visit, and when they did, he would ask them for photographs and posters that he could put up on the walls and decorate his theater, and they all gave him stuff. Well, before long, the entire interior of this theater was just wallpapered with photos of magicians of the time. When he passed away, the museum was taken over by two brothers, the Dowd brothers, who lived in Kenton, and they continued it on for some years. And in 1953, a collector by the name of David Price, who already had a big magic collection, came to Kenton, Ohio to see the famous Egyptian Hall theater, and he ended up buying the contents of the theater. And he moved it all down to his place in Tennessee. And at that point, he named his existing collection the Egyptian Hall Museum after this theater. And he had it for nearly 50 years. And he bought collections and he traded to get things that he didn't have until he had the largest collection of magicians' lithographs, and by that I mean these kind of posters that you see around me, in the world, as well as a big library and a collection of historic apparatus. And when he passed away in 1999, a friend of mine, George Daly, and I bought the whole kit and caboodle, 5,000 tons of paper and memorabilia.
In addition to collecting magic memorabilia, Mike is also an author and publisher, as well as a renowned magician in his own right. He even received the distinction of Stage Magician of the Year by members of Hollywood's Magic Castle.
My favorite magicians were whoever I had just seen on the Ed Sullivan Show. I would never miss this show, and every once in a while, he would have a magician. And he only had the greatest magicians in the world. So it was a fantastic thing to have in your own living room. The favorite thing in my act has changed dramatically over the years. There's the old linking ring trick that's been around for 1,000 years, where the magician links steel rings together. I used to do that trick. I loved that trick, but then I started doing it with coat hangers. And I would link coat hangers together and became known for that trick and traveled literally all around the world as the guy who linked coat hangers together. So that was kind of what I hung my hat on for a while. So I'm surrounded by my favorite things. There's racks of lithographs. Some of my favorite things are on the walls. Up there is a poster of Harry Houdini, and you might expect that it would say the King of Escapes or the Escape King, because that's what he was famous for, escaping from anything. Well, that says the King of Cards. And that was from the 1890s when he was just starting out and he hadn't quite figured out who Houdini is. And he decided, I'll be the King of Cards, which was a bad idea. And when he finally decided to become the Escape King, that was a good idea. And he went on to great fame and fortune. This poster here, Chung-Ling Soo, the marvelous Chinese conjurer, was actually an American, never been to China in his life. His name was Billy Robinson. He was a New Yorker. And in that poster, he's performing a trick where those men with the rifles are shooting the bullets, and he catches all the bullets in that china plate that he's holding in front of him. There's only 2 copies of that poster known to exist. And the reason that that's so important is in 1918 he was killed performing that trick on stage in London. The Lafayette poster, that's the only copy of that poster known to exist. Today, if you found an artist and said, draw me a picture of a magician, they would sit down and draw a picture of a magician with a black twisted mustache and a little goatee and black satin knee pants, and he wouldn't even realize that he was drawing a picture of Alexander Herman. That's how influential this guy was back in the day. He died in 1896. These are some very rare posters of his. This is the only known copy of this Herman poster, the favorite of all nations. So it's a great gallery of great magicians, and I'm happy to live amongst them. Magicians are very resilient. Back in the early days, many hundreds of years ago, magicians performed out in the street. That's kind of all they had, and they did amazing things. And when people saw them, they accused them of being in league with the devil. Many people not many, some people back then who were accused of witchcraft were burned at the stake. In 1584, a man named Reginald Scott wrote a book in England, and he said, look, they're not in league with the devil, they're doing sleight of hand, and here's how their tricks work. And for the first time in the English language, he explained how magic worked. It didn't change too much. They continued to burn people at the stake. But then some more magic books were written, and magicians moved indoors. And first they would perform at fairs. They'd have a little platform outdoors at a fair. People would gather around and they'd do their show. Then they moved indoors and they would work in beer halls, really rough places. The only reason the people were there were to drink and to watch the women dance and sing. And every once in a while they'd have a magician. Tough crowd. But that later turned into vaudeville, which was kind of the biggest thing that ever happened to show business, really. Vaudeville was for the whole family, not just for men. You could bring your wife, you could bring your kids to the vaudeville show. Thousands of performers performed in these theaters every week, all over America, certainly. So that was kind of the golden age. And then along came television, and along came movies, and vaudeville faded away. What came next were nightclubs, and a magician would be introduced and he'd come out on a dance floor, and the audience was wrapped all the way around the dance floor, and the orchestra is behind him. Many magicians says, I can't work here, and other magicians said, I'll create an act that I can do out in the middle of that dance floor. So they adapted, and they always adapted. And then, of course, in the early days of television, people said, well, you can't do magic on TV. People will just think it's camera tricks. And we're able to convince people that when there aren't camera tricks, they're not using camera tricks, and magic is amazing even on TV. So, huge influence on magic of all the guys that have been on television. So, you just keep wondering, what's next? What's going to be next? I know we'll adapt somehow.
The character Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in the horror classic Halloween, was named after John Carpenter's first girlfriend.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Good kisses. Good kisses. You heard how loud
I heard. It wasn't you. Yeah. It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome to Altadena's Mountain View Cemetery. This final resting place is home to a number of notable figures, including one that had a secret identity.
Mountain View started in 1882. We have a family business here, so everything radiates out of that family business. It's a family affair. It's a more intimate environment, and it's wonderful because you can just tell the care that goes on. Groundskeepers here, they've been here 20, 30 years, so everybody knows that this is Mountain View and this is our home, and for the newly arrived, it's their home as well. And we have interred here in the mausoleum and also here in the cemetery 132,000 people. So a lot of people, a lot of history is here. We have a lot of the early founders of Pasadena, and we have, by the way, more Civil War veterans buried here than any other cemetery west of the Mississippi. This is one of our historical figures in Black Studies. This is Eldridge Cleaver. He wrote the book while he was in prison called Soul on Ice, and then he was with the Black Panthers. And if you're doing studies of American history, late 60s, this is one of the major players in American history. With all of the earthquake news over the last many weeks, this is the gentleman that helped chart the earthquakes, a local gentleman, Mr. Richter of the Richter scale fame. And he's interred right here at Mountain View, one of our scientist celebrities. The question is always, what is the oldest grave at Mountain View Cemetery? And it is this wooden grave, a wooden marker. That has got to be the absolute earliest grave because it's wooden. And it's the only wooden grave in the entire cemetery. This is one of our most popular grave sites here at Mountain View Mausoleum. This is Superman George Reeves from the 1950s. Of course, he was in Gone with the Wind, and a great actor, and he's interred here. And we have people that stop by and pay their homage to him. I've actually found the arm of a Superman action figure sitting here on the ledge at one stage. So this is part of all of the celebrities and the politicians and the statesmen, entertainers that are buried here at Mountain View, and just part of another one of our great stories. We are now in our Mountain View Mausoleum, and I like to call it our Sistine Chapel. It's a hidden jewel here in Altadena, and right next to the cemetery, and it's beautiful. This is 180 feet long, this fresco up on top. The Swedish artist took 4.5 years to paint. This is called The History of Christianity. It starts with Genesis, and it is quite a historical and religious storytelling at its best. It's just wonderful to see. This mausoleum was one of the 70 mausoleums that was designed by Mr. Bryan. And Mr. Bryan and his wife are interred just above here. And with the 70 mausoleums that he designed across America, he chose this as his final resting place with his wife. He considered this, the Mountain View Mausoleum, the crown jewel of his mausoleums. And it has all the imported marble. It's just beautiful. And the stained glass, as you'll see, is just consoling and wonderful to experience, just the light itself. We're open 7 days. You can come through and walk through and take a look at all the history that we have, and you're most welcome, of course. People come in all the time just to walk through. It's wonderful to be around all the history of the area and to talk with people, and people always walk up and they tell you their family stories. And you know, as a funeral director, my job is David Lazarus in the LA Times. He did an article, and he was sort of joking with me, but he said, you're sort of a stage manager. And you sort of are, because you're leading the whole series of events, but at the same time you have to hopefully have a kind heart and look after the families. I've actually written a book, and it's called Confessions of an LA Funeral Director. And after doing so many funerals, maybe well over 500 funeral services, I started to see the very touching side of what we do. We look after families when they have broken hearts. And at the same time, there's some comedy things that go on behind the scenes that are sort of funny. It's amazing, you know, all the stories. I remember that TV show years ago, The Naked City. They used to say there's 1,000 stories in the Naked City, and there's like 10,000 stories here at Mountain View. It's quite a place.
Owls are associated with Halloween because in medieval Europe, owls were thought to be witches. To hear an owl's call meant someone was about to die.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
Striving for healing, enlightenment, and balance, the Indigo Alliance team provides guidance to those seeking spiritual growth. We're here at the monthly psychic fair, and hopefully I can find out what the future has in store.
Indigo Alliance opened a year ago in February, so we've been open about a year and a half. And I always would go to psychic shops. I went to Alexandria, the local ones, and when I would be there going for a reading, I would always think, this is such a neat thing, I could do this. And it's really a good, thriving business. People, you'd be amazed how many people come to them, and you would never know the people that walk through the door. The Indigo Alliance is a group of practitioners, healers, who have come together it's almost like a clubhouse where it's a community we have. People come and they meet here, they conduct classes here. If they're a tarot card reader, they do readings here. We've just been a group that came together to try and help each other and the community find happiness.
I love being involved with Indigo. First of all, it's a beautiful place to come to. It's like a sanctuary here, and I feel like this place not only has the information, the spiritual consulting help of many different varieties, the classes, the books, the beautiful giftware and all that kind of stuff, but it has an energy about it that uplifts.
The classes that we have are spiritual based. A lot of people are really interested in developing their mediumship abilities. And then we have events as well. Like last night we had a group medium reading where Greg Stanley, who is from Hawaii, was here, and we had 30 people here, and everybody just kind of sits around and has a good time.
The origins of my specialty, it came directly from spirit. I can remember talking to spirits from the time I was 3 years old. And the origin, it was a gift. And it's no better than anybody else's gift. There are some people who are gifted in singing. There are people who are gifted in writing. There are people who are gifted in acting. This is my gift, and this is what I was born to do.
We have several practitioners. We have Tony, who her specialties are astrology. She's kind of our resident astrologer, and she has an encyclopedic knowledge of astrology, and she'll stand there and ask you, oh, when were you born? And she can then tell you that, your Saturn was in this. She also has a huge history with the tarot, and so she's a tarot card reader.
So it has to do a lot with what you speak about and how you use your speech and the unspoken speech of thought as to what kind of tower you're building for yourself in your life. Tarot comes from the Egyptian Ta-aro, and it means royal path, the royal path. In the 1200s, in the city of Fez in Morocco, all these masters from all over the known world gathered, and they wanted to share the spiritual beliefs that they held in common. Because the Inquisition was starting and because of language barriers, they were unable to communicate the ways that they wanted to. So they created a big book of pictures involving symbols. Now that was just the major arcana, so the Fool through the world. So the major arcana has symbols in it. These masters understood that the subconscious mind speaks the language of symbols, and they could all look at this picture of the Empress, for instance, and understand all the symbols in her picture and what they meant on a practical level as well as a spiritual level. What's so beautiful about this system, you can use it in your everyday life to improve conditions and situations in your life.
It's just such a fun place, and what makes me so happy is all the people that are part of Indigo just say, you know what, I love coming here. Every day that I come here, if I come to work here, it's just I look forward to it because it's such a happy experience.
I thought it was normal that I would see people, and people that were no longer here on Earth, and telling adults that your grandmother's here or that kind of stuff, or actually seeing people melt too. Which means basically they were passing over. So that was one of the things, first things that I knew that the rest of the kids didn't do. I wake up with joy to come here, and I am surrounded by love, working with people who are light workers, and that light workers are people who bring love to the earth. So we're here to uplift the world, and what I've benefited from is learning how to love myself even more, and how to give love, and how to be loved.
People, they want to know that they do have a purpose, and my gift helps them know that they have a purpose from the information that their angels and their spirit guides and their loved ones on the other side have to say, and that helps bring peace into their lives. And the more peace that is brought into their lives, the more healing is brought to our planet and to humanity.
Here's your events calendar for the month of November. Night of Magic, an evening for the station, on November 1st at the Rose. Dia de los Muertos on November 3rd at Villa Park Community Center. Veterans Day celebration on November 11th at City Hall Centennial Square. Designer Con on November 11th through 12th at Pasadena Convention Center. One Aurora Day on November 18th at Brookside Park. Jackalope Indie Artisan Fair on November 18th through 19th at Central Park. Doodah Parade on November 19th at American Legion Post 280. 2017 Winter Village Festival on November 25th at downtown Sierra Madre. That's your events calendar for the month of November. We hope you've enjoyed this spectacular episode. We'll rise again for our episode in November, so make sure to check us out on social media and pasadenamedia.org. Happy Halloween! This program was produced by Pasadena Media.